It is 12 noon. Welcome back in. This is Three-Man Front on Jocks. Pat Langella, Molly Conrad with you until 2 o'clock. We appreciate you tuning in on this Thursday. Mike Griffith from the AJC, DogNation.com. He joined us earlier in the program. So did Rodney Orr from Tider Insider. Rob Pate, former Auburn DB, he has sent me a full write-up in regards to the game. Usually Rob joins us on Thursdays. He is in clinic. He cannot get out for obvious reasons, seeing patients today, but he has given me his thoughts on the Auburn-Oklahoma game, and that's where we're going to go next. We're going to go to the great state of Oklahoma and talk to George Stoia from Soonerscoop.com. He joins us here on the Higginbotham Hotline. George, I hope you're doing well. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of the game and how you think it's going to play out, we wanted to talk about your outstanding article that folks can read there at Soonerscoop.com, part of the On3 network, behind the scenes of Jackson Arnold's departure and Oklahoma's pursuit of John Mateer. Welcome to the program, and just first and foremost, just kind of take us down the road to the genesis of you trying to put together a story like this, especially on a big week like this week, Auburn and Oklahoma.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, guys. But I think that you look back at last year and everything that happened here in Norman, and it was just kind of a disaster. Whether it was the offense and just the injuries that they sustained. I know Brent Venables has talked about that at length, but obviously the quarterback controversy where they benched Jackson in the fourth game of the season against Tennessee after he had those three really bad turnovers ended up really kind of costing them the game. They played Michael Hawkins, which obviously he goes and wins on the road at Auburn last year, but then he ended up having two really bad games against Texas and South Carolina. Jackson comes back in, and I'll tell you guys, there was some thought late last season, the way Jackson was playing, and they'd beaten Alabama at home, and Jackson was playing a little bit better than he did earlier in the year. There was some thought, would Oklahoma be interested in keeping Jackson Arnold? And at that time they were going through their offensive coordinator search, and there was talk of, well, maybe Jackson would be a good fit with Joe Craddock, who was a candidate, the Tulane offensive coordinator. He could maybe run that offense, or, they ended up hiring Ben Arbuckle. There's some thought, well, if Ben Arbuckle doesn't bring John Mateer, could Jackson Arnold, play for him? And I think that the reality is Jackson and Oklahoma probably needed a fresh start. And I hate using that term, fresh start, because everybody says that nowadays with the transfer portal. But I think in this case, it very much was that. And there were some questions about how that all went down. I talked to Jackson's dad, and I know there's probably a lot of people that think, maybe there's some hatred there between OU and Jackson Arnold, and I'm sure the fan base will let Jackson hear it. And I do think there's some sour grapes about how this all went down, but I also think there's still a lot of respect. And in the end, it feels like everybody kind of won in this scenario. Jackson got to go to a really good program in Auburn and be a starting quarterback. And Oklahoma went out and got John Mateer, who has been one of the best quarterbacks in the country so far through 3 weeks. So it's just kind of fascinating how it all went down and how Oklahoma had really put all of its eggs in Jackson's basket going into last season, and it quickly changed as soon as the season ended.
All right, that's where I want to pick up, George. Where, as far as Jackson Arnold, his conversations with Brent Venables, the hiring of a new offensive coordinator, the transfer portal, kind of take us through that timeline and tell us how it all transpired.
Yeah, from my understanding, Jackson, wasn't really, at least, publicly thinking about transferring until the end of the season. And I don't think he had any of those discussions with the coaching staff about, hey, I'm going to transfer. He stuck it out. He got benched. He stuck it out. He came back. He helped him win the Alabama game. He played in the Ole Miss game and gave him a chance in that one. Should have beat Missouri. Like, he kind of put his body on the line. And after the LSU game, the final game of the season, he told us in the media, he's like, I don't have any reason to leave Oklahoma. But at that point, OU was targeting Ben Arbuckle. They hired Ben Arbuckle, I think it was 3 days after the LSU game, after the season ended. 2 days later, Jackson Arnold enters the portal. And it's my understanding that Oklahoma, when they were going through this offensive coordinator search, they were looking for an offensive coordinator and quarterback duo. And when they, started focusing on Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer, I think that they, Jackson saw the writing on the wall. Oklahoma, I think, would obviously have liked to keep Jackson and have him be the backup, but that was never going to happen. That was never going to be a reality. Jackson wants to be a starter somewhere, is good enough to be a starter somewhere. And I think at that point, after the LSU game, after he talked to Coach Venables, as well as Ben Arbuckle when he first got to Norman, those couple days after the LSU game, he kind of saw what was going on, and he knew that he had to make a decision quickly because, as we know, in the transfer portal, things happen fast, and he was obviously going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the market.
George Stoia joins us. A great story there at Soonerscoop.com in regards to behind the scenes of Jackson Arnold's departure and Oklahoma's pursuit of John Mateer. So I want to go back to Jackson Arnold as he was being recruited by Oklahoma, one of the top quarterbacks in that recruiting period. What other schools were in the mix for Jackson? I know he's a Texas kid, but I'm sure all the behemoths in the college game was trying to get his services back when he was a senior in high school.
Well, a lot of people thought he was going to go to Notre Dame. Notre Dame and the Irish were kind of the leading, candidates to land him, and as well as his best friend Peyton Bowen, who's a starting safety for Oklahoma right now. He was actually committed to Notre Dame and was recruiting Jackson to come there. And really, Oklahoma didn't get in on Jackson until Brent Venables and Jeff Lebby were hired. And, Jeff Lebby was the one that kind of recruited him. He's now obviously the head coach at Mississippi State, recruited him to Oklahoma, and they kind of hit it off, had a really close connection. They were able to flip Peyton Bowen from Notre Dame and then Oregon and then to Oklahoma. His recruitment's kind of a whole nother story, but those two guys were best friends, and that's how they both ended up at OU. But it was really a Notre Dame and Oklahoma race. And after Jackson came and visited and met Jeff Lebby for the first time and Brent Venables and kind of the new staff in Oklahoma, he fell in love with it. And that's kind of the interesting thing. Like, Jackson came to Oklahoma really to play for Jeff Lebby. And so when Jeff Lebby left, there was some thought of like, well, can Oklahoma hold on to Jackson Arnold? But Brent Venables had already given Jackson the keys. Dylan Gabriel had left, and a lot of people thought he was going to go to the NFL. He ends up transferring to Oregon, and Oklahoma still wanted to bet on Jackson. And Dylan was never going to stay at OU when Jeff Lebby left. So it was this whole dynamic. Jackson stays. They promote from within. They promote Seth Luttrell to offensive coordinator, who was an offensive analyst and kind of somebody who learned underneath Jeff Lebby. So it was one of those things that Jackson really liked that with Seth, but it just didn't work out. And obviously there was also some thought that Jackson might transfer to Mississippi State and play for Jeff Lebby. But I think the opportunity at Auburn was obviously a better one.
It is fascinating, George, the relationship of these two quarterbacks are going to face each other in Norman. They're on Saturday, going back to their high school days. But if you were going to compare and contrast the two players in John Mateer of Oklahoma and Jackson Arnold now of Auburn, how would you do that?
That's a great question, because I think both of these guys obviously use their legs, and that's one thing that I think that could be a difference maker for Jackson on Saturday is the ability to run the football and kind of put Oklahoma in some tough spots. Mateer's the same way. I mean, I'm sure you guys watched the Michigan game. His legs were the difference in that game. I mean, I think he ran for 76 yards on 19 rushes and kind of picked up some short yardage situations. So I think they're very similar that way. I think Jackson has maybe better arm talent, just pure arm talent. But Mateer, the one thing that I've been super impressed with him is he's really good at going through his progressions, reading a defense. Obviously, he's very comfortable with the play caller, whereas Jackson is somebody that has now, I think it's his fourth offensive coordinator in 3 years. So he's had a lot of different stuff. And I think Hugh Freeze has done a good job of, doing good things and making things easier for him around him. And obviously the playmakers that he has in the offensive line. But I like Mateer's ability to read a defense and kind of pick defenses apart. I don't know if we've seen that from Jackson. I think he's improved this year, but the way that Mateer's played in that aspect, I think has been super impressive. And the one thing I've seen from Jackson too, he's been a lot better with the ball this year. He put a lot of bad balls in bad places a year ago. Obviously I think he led the country in fumbles a year ago. He hasn't turned the ball over this year. He hasn't thrown any interceptions, whereas Mateer has thrown 3 interceptions. Now 2 of them, I would argue, were not his fault. So I think that they're very comparable, though, in the way that they can run the ball, and also I think both have pretty good arm talent.
I wanted to ask you about Jackson Arnold and his girlfriend. No, I'm not going like TMZ here. I'm just asking because we see a lot of times where players will transfer to a certain school because maybe their girlfriend goes there or they want to transfer there as a couple. And if I understand this correctly, George, Jackson Arnold's girlfriend is still a student at OU. Is that correct?
That is correct. She is, and she's actually the sister of former Oklahoma kicker Gavin Marshall, who played at Oklahoma. He ended up transferring, I think, to Maryland a couple years ago. But yes, they have been dating for some time, I believe, and she goes to all of Auburn's games. But she's still, I think, she's a senior now, maybe at Oklahoma.
Okay. A very interesting spin to that. Well, George, I want to get your thoughts on the game itself coming up as Oklahoma finds itself in a great position, home favorite over the Auburn Tigers. Auburn, it's been since 2019. They started the season 4-0. This is a much better team than the one Oklahoma faced last year, just like Auburn knows that they're facing a better Oklahoma team than they did last year, who beat them down in Auburn. So just your thoughts on this game upcoming on Saturday and who you like and how it's going to play out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really close game, guys. I really do. And I saw the lines up to 6.5. I'm not so sure Oklahoma's going to cover that. I'm picking OU to win the game, and mostly just because I trust this OU defense. I think that this is the best defense that Oklahoma's had in probably, maybe 2 decades, really since probably maybe 2009. And it starts up front. I think their defensive line is pretty special this year. And, they're going to be without R. Mason Thomas in the first half after the targeting call, but they've got a lot of dudes on the edge, I'm sure, that can fill in for him. But I also just trust John Mateer in this spot. And it's not that I don't trust Jackson. I think Jackson can come in and have a really good game. But on the road against this defense, I just think Oklahoma's going to be able to come up with enough stops. The only thing that concerns me on OU's part is they're banged up on the offensive line, and we'll see who can give it a go. I'm sure you guys saw the availability report last night. They had a handful of guys on the offensive line listed on there. I think most of those guys that were listed as questionable are going to end up playing, but they're going to be playing not at 100%. And so can they hold up against this Auburn defensive line, which I think is pretty talented? If they can protect Mateer, I think there's some yardage and some big plays to be had in the passing game for OU. And so that's kind of why I'm leaning OU, but I know there's a lot of people here in Norman that are pretty confident OU is going to be able to win this game handily. I think it's going to be a close game, down to the wire in the fourth quarter.
Well, it should be a really good one, and you can go and you can check out George's story there at Soonerscoop.com. It's just a great piece in which he looks back at how Jackson Arnold ended up at Auburn and how John Mateer ended up in Norman. George, I hope you'll come back down the road because, of course, Alabama and Oklahoma, they will do battle a little bit later in this season, but it should be a lot of fun this weekend as Auburn fans make their first ever trek to Norman, Oklahoma. Thank you so much for your time today.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. That's George Stoia. He joins us, just like all of our guests do, on the Higginbotham Hotline. You deserve solutions that are built for you. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
Tell you about our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is so much fun, especially during football season. It's the best place to win cash while watching sports. You can join millions of users and sign up today. You make your picks in less than 60 seconds, and you turn your takes into cash all season long. It's really simple to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 players' stat projections. Tonight, just for Conrad Van Order, we are going professional football. That's right. We've got Conrad, Tua, and his Dolphins taking on the Bills. Conrad, Tua, 1-8 career versus the Dolphins, as you pointed out. But boy, do I have a doozy for you.
Is this how many times he's injured in the game? I go more.
Thank you, Pat. What if it was there? Oh, that would be so good. No, we're going to go passing yards. Tua, 212.5, more or less passing yards for Tua. 212.5.
I got to go less. We want people to make money.
Okay.
Gonna go less.
Josh Allen, 213.5 passing yards. More or less.
Double, more.
Felt pretty certain about that.
Yeah, I feel really good about that one.
So we're going less on Tua
And more.
More on Josh. We hit both of those. We're a winner. You can be a winner too. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code WJOX to get $50 in lineups after you play that first $5 lineup. That's code WJOX. Get $50 in lineups after you play that first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. I was going to go college football tonight, the lone game that we have out of the American with Rice taking on Charlotte. Chase Jenkins, the Rice Owls quarterback. Do you know what his passing yards projection is?
300.
83.5.
That just says you how much I know about Rice.
Well,
And
they
I know
run a little
Charlotte's
bit of a
bad.
different offense, but his season stats, 182 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. That thing will be thrilling tonight.
Yeah, it's a great game.
I'm going to watch it. Well, we play Rice. A scout.
Okay. Well, let me know what you see.
Smaller TV. Smaller TV.
Yeah, give us the highlights when you're
just-
done watching.
I'm going to
that
have
one.
Tua in the tent there on the big TV. So
Yeah, he'll be in the tent. Probably a bunch. All right, it's 12:16, bottom of the hour. Brett Norsworthy will join us from WHPQ, the Ole Miss Radio Network. All that straight ahead on Jocks.
$12.19 at 3-man front. George Stoia, Sooner Scoop. How it all played out, how Jackson Arnold, former Oklahoma quarterback, ended up at Auburn. Appreciate George joining the show. And much like everybody else, most everybody else that we've heard from, there's been some some others that have voted the way of Auburn, but George thinks it's going to be a very close game, probably less than a touchdown, but it's going to be too much Oklahoma defense there in Norman on Saturday.
Yeah, we told you earlier, Auburn Undercover, all those fine folks that cover the Auburn Tigers, they've already posted their predictions for the game. Jason Caldwell went Auburn 27-23. Philip Marshall, Oklahoma 28-24 over Auburn. Christian Clemente, Oklahoma 27-24. Nathan King, Oklahoma 28, Auburn 21. And Patrick Bingham went Auburn 18, Oklahoma 16. So everybody within that touchdown type range. But most everyone, because I'm trying to see what's the updated total in the game.
Updated total. Oh, we just had some movement. It is over under 46.5, and Oklahoma is a 7-point favorite.
I just saw that. Yep. Oklahoma. This is the most.
Right as you said that, it moved.
Yeah. So Auburn is now a touchdown underdog to Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
It's way better at 6.5.
Very
With
much
Auburn
so.
plus the 7.
Does that make you change your mind on bet it or forget it tomorrow?
Oh yeah, if it goes from 6.5 to 7.5, I'll change my pick.
Oh yeah, or OU.
Oh yeah.
Are you the Kool-Aid man now?
That's right.
So the best college football game last weekend on television, most viewers, was Georgia-Tennessee. It peaked at 15.9 million. We told you that's yesterday. 12.6 million. That was the average viewers for the game. Meanwhile, the Notre Dame game against Texas A&M, about 6 million. The reason I bring this up again, the NFL just released their early television viewing, the ratings, and the viewership. So keep in mind the number one college football game last weekend, which was an incredible game, Georgia-Tennessee, 12.6 million viewers. Would you like to take a guess what the Philadelphia Eagles-Kansas City Chiefs game drew, viewer-wise? That was the number one NFL game last weekend. How many viewers do you think watched Philadelphia at Kansas City as opposed to the 12.6 million that watched Georgia and Tennessee?
I will say 22.5.
I will go 27 million.
25.5.
Those are all excellent guesses, but the Philadelphia-Kansas City game drew 33.8 million people.
Wow.
On average, right now, through the first part of the NFL season, the average viewership of an NFL game is 20.7 million people.
So the most average of average NFL games is still 5 million more than the peak of Georgia-Tennessee.
The Minnesota-Chicago Monday Night Football game, 22.1 million people watched that game.
That's not even good football.
No, it's not. You had 24 million watch Detroit and Green Bay. Baltimore and Buffalo had right at 25 million. And Dallas and Philadelphia to kick off the season, 28.3 million.
Wow, so the Chiefs and Eagles did 5 million more than even that one.
Yes.
Whew.
Average viewers is up about 4%, and the highest average through week 2 is up 17%. So just incredible numbers for the NFL. Not that it would shock any of us, but when you compare that to a really good college football game, a Southeastern Conference game that went into overtime between two blue bloods in our conference, and it didn't even garner almost a third of the NFL top audience from the weekend. That's crazy to me. Just how dominating the NFL is.
I don't know though. But you go to other parts of the country and you realize just how much they love the NFL and professional football, and how much of an afterthought in a lot of these places the college game is. They'll watch it if it's on, or they happen to be somewhere on a Saturday and the game's on, but people don't go out of their way. Now they do down here. It's a way of life. It's our culture. But I can kind of see that. where you're watching the elite of the elite, the best in the world, play their sport. And the NFL does such a wonderful job of branding, marketing, all of that stuff. They're in my opinion, they're the best. Not just professional organizations, sports organizations or associations.
Just organizations.
Just businesses, period.
Oh, they're fantastic.
As their brand, staying in the moment, never going away. There's never an off season with the NFL. They've done a wonderful job doing that.
No, they're one of the few that continues to grow and grow and grow. And even a few years ago when it looked like a lot of people were kind of planting their flag, I'm done with the NFL. Right.
Here's one other stat that's going to blow your mind. So from the start of the NFL season just a couple of weeks ago to currently, 13 of the top 15 television shows in America are NFL games. So.
And at the end of the year, we'll get the 100 most watched games, and 90 of them will be NFL games.
Yeah, at least. Could be more.
And part of it, too, is where they put their games. It's not by mistake. Sunday afternoons, I mean, folks down here, even in the Bible Belt, it's after church. It's your downtime. Maybe you're not going to have, in most cases, I know travel ball, but kids aren't going to have games. So it's that time. And then Monday night, looking for something to do, right?
Yeah, nobody's got anything going on Monday nights, yeah.
And plus, I give credit to the networks and how they packaged all of their games and making it interesting and more than just it's on, I'll watch. I want to watch tonight.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even if it's not going to, I'm going to watch every NFL game that I have an opportunity to watch because it's more football and it's high-quality football. A lot of the time.
But you take the beast that is the NFL and then you add to it. Not that it's a huge part of it, but you cross over with pop culture and a Taylor Swift and a Travis Kelce. That's been really good for the NFL.
There's no doubt about it. And they love the fact that gambling continues to be a bigger focus for a lot of people, and more people are interested in that, and that helps the NFL. Fantasy football continues to be bigger than it's ever been before. That helps the NFL.
Because what are they going and selling to prospective advertisers? They're going and selling that Paige Van Order is going to be watching this game.
Yeah, I mean, my wife was, what time are the Chiefs and Eagles game going? Are we going to be home in time to watch the game? Because she wanted to watch Taylor Swift. Now, didn't care about the game, but that's eyeballs.
Just a nothing game in the NFL is drawing 20 million eyeballs. So, I mean, if you're going to an advertiser, I mean, that's just like, it doesn't matter. It could be a terrible Minnesota Viking, Chicago Bears game, and it's drawing 20 plus million. Nuts. Coming up next, I'm sure we're going to get a couple of I Ain't Scared bold predictions from Brett Norsworthy. He will join the show.
Oh, I hope so.
5 more this week?
I don't know. We'll see. That's coming up next on Three Man Front.
12:32, three-man front, the Southern gentleman, Brett Norsworthy, is going to stop by. We'll get his I Ain't Scared Bowl prediction of the college football weekend. College football tonight. Rice at Charlotte out of the American. NFL tonight, right here on Jocks. You're the Dolphins taking on the Bills. Bills an 11.5-point favorite. They're in Buffalo, as we stated, and I cannot state it enough. Tua is 1-8 career versus the Buffalo Bills. So you get some football tonight, got football tomorrow, and of course, this weekend, Alabama being off as the Tide and Dog fans prepare for that matchup coming up in between the hedges next week. But some good big matchups. Auburn traveling to Norman, Oklahoma to take on the Oklahoma Sooners. The Ole Miss Rebels, no time to rest now as they play host to the Tulane Green Wave. And Brett Norsworthy, who is a part of that outstanding radio network, the Ole Miss Football Radio Network, and also a very talented host there in Memphis, Tennessee, weekday afternoons, joining us now. Brett, how are you?
Landrum, I'm really well. Conrad and I were having a really good conversation. It's time to talk to y'all, though.
What was Conrad asking you? Anything creepy? Anything that made you uncomfortable?
No. We were talking. I was being candid with him. I think Ole Miss is very fortunate to be 3-0, to be 2-0 in the SEC. You change a couple of plays against Kentucky and one from Arkansas, and it's not 3-0. And there's a lot of questions around this Ole Miss team. I'm frankly shocked at the defensive line's lack of really being nasty. Don't get to the quarterback. Couldn't stop the run. Arkansas 2-1 run advantage, but did make a play in a game that did not have any defensive plays except for one, and it was the difference in the game.
In regards to moving forward, is there a quarterback competition or a controversy there in Oxford between the two quarterbacks?
Probably more competition than controversy. The only controversy I think will be is if Austin Simmons indeed starts Saturday against Tulane and he struggles and Trinidad Chambliss comes in and he plays well, you're going to hear the stadium vote with its applause and with its standing ovation. Trinidad Chambliss was spectacular last week, and he had to be because the quarterback performance on the other side by Taylon Green. In my years on the Ole Miss crew, I base everything kind of off of starting with Cam in 2010, Johnny in 2012, really 12 and 13. He came to Oxford. Bryce Young, Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels. That performance by Taylon Green was in that league last Saturday night.
Brett, we know you've watched college football, a lot of college football over your lifetime, and we have as well. But if you can't stop the run, if you can't run the ball effectively, you're going to have a hard time winning games, especially in the SEC. What you said about up front defensively for the Ole Miss Rebels and Pete Golding, is that something that you think they continue to have to work through, something that maybe is not remedied this season?
Pete thinks he can. Pete was he was furious post-game. Glad at the win, glad that the defense made a play, and really proud of this defense for only holding Arkansas to 7 points in the second half. Now, the offense didn't get very much either. Won the second half 10-7 after winning the first half 31-28. But that first half performance, Green could just get anything he wanted. We couldn't rush him. We couldn't cover him. We couldn't blitz him. I just scared to death to try a blitz. He would have picked that apart. But then in the second half got a little more effective. Ole Miss got the 3 points right before halftime. And I think this really came from the college basketball world. They talk the college basketball coaches, guys, talk about that middle 8 minutes, that last 4 of the first half and the first 4 of the second half. Well, I think it's applicable to college football. And Ole Miss was really proud to get that field goal before halftime, lead 31-28, and then was getting the ball. And we were all thinking, okay, we drive down and score easy like it's been all night and be up 10 and maybe start to breathe a little bit. Arkansas stymied Ole Miss, kind of broke serve. Well, then Ole Miss stopped them, and everything was all square, and we had a little more defense in the second half. But I came out of it more impressed with Arkansas than I went into it with. Especially offensively. They put a lot of NIL money into the offensive line, and it shows. It was a bull grader, a road grader. It really ran right over Ole Miss.
In regards to this week, the Tulane Green Wave, it's been a good program the last couple of years under Willie Fritz, and now John Sumrall's done a nice job continuing that trend. Just your thoughts on this game. I know Vegas thinks that this is almost a 2-touchdown type game, but I get the feeling based on this conversation with you that this could be a much closer game than maybe some people want to give it credit for.
Pat, it's been the one for these games leading up to LSU next week that I was most scared of, because I was scared of the sandwich game effect after Arkansas, before LSU, all at home, but also the regard and the respect that I and so many of y'all, we all have for John Summerall from Huntsville, played at Kentucky. He was Ole Miss linebackers coach in the 3 years. Coach Freeze actually hired him, then he was coach for the Matt Luke tenure, and I love him. He's a guy's guy, a football coach's football coach. And we were talking one time, maybe before opening day, their first year. Anyway, we were talking somewhere one time, and he told me, and he had that kind of that Bill Romanowski crazy linebacker look on his face. And he said, Brett, you know what the key to football is? I said, what's that, Coach? He said, you got to get them around the head and get them on the ground. and you do. You got to be physical. You got to cowboy up. And we know he's a tough guy, and the good job he did at Troy, the good job he's doing at Tulane, and the Tulane athletics director, a former Ole Miss player. So a lot of familiarity with that athletics department. And 2 years ago, down at Tulane, without their starting quarterback, that final score ended up 37-20. It was nowhere near that route. It was close and could have been lost in the last few minutes, but Ole Miss they were able to pull it out at the end. I expect a really close game Saturday in Oxford. I do.
Brett, very fascinating matchup with undefeated Auburn traveling to Norman, Oklahoma to take on John Mateer, the undefeated Oklahoma Sooners. How do you see this one shaping up?
I think it's going to be really close. It advantages the home team in a close game. I think Mateer is I think he's a little better than Jackson Arnold. This is the Jackson Arnold Bowl, but Coach Freeze has got his team really right where he would want them heading into this preseason. I had this as an Auburn loss. I'm going to stay with it this week, but it wouldn't shock me if they pull the upset. And if they do, that is clearly Coach Freeze's biggest win since he's been on the Plains. And then, next week, welcome to, we all know it about the SEC. I mean, you go to Norman, you go to College Station in back-to-back weeks. Take a ride on that. I just wish one time we could go for Golden Gophers.
Brett Norsworthy joins us from WHBQ Radio in Memphis, part of the Ole Miss Radio Network. So let me ask you about LSU. That's next week's opponent. I'm not trying to get you to look ahead, but based on what you were able to see or maybe go back and watch, because I know you were busy with the broadcast, what was going on between Ole Miss and Arkansas, any concern for LSU? The running game just is not there. Nussmeier is not playing up to what most of us thought he would be playing at this juncture of the season. Just your thoughts on LSU.
I did this last year with them. I thought last year, if Ole Miss scores something in the 20s, it's a win. And Nussmeier and LSU matched all night, and then in the end, in overtime, they won it. I a little bit agree with the bombast and how Coach Brian Kelly acted post-game. Question absolutely was fair to be asked, but, man, we just won an SEC game against Florida, and Florida's really in a weakened position now. Florida didn't have all the turnovers, and they cost me on my I ain't scared pick, even with the points. But, no, LSU's going to be right next week. We know what kind of game it's going to be. And really, Pat, post-game with Coach Kiffin last week, I remarked to him in a question form that I thought that Arkansas game was a lot like the LSU game 2 years ago in Oxford, and that Taylor Green was a lot like Jaden Daniels was that night, and he agreed. So we expect wild game tomorrow. We know next week will be when LSU comes down.
Brett, I did want to ask you, between South Carolina, just had the loss at home last week. They got to go to Como this week, and Florida, now 2 losses on the season, heading to Miami. Which ship of those 2 respective programs is taking on more water at the moment?
I think it's South Carolina because of a lack of offensive line. I had them 1 and 2 to this point. As y'all know, I had them losing to Virginia Tech. They won, but I had them beating Vanderbilt if they lost. I've had them losing to Mizzou all summer, and I think they will. I don't think they're very good. They just lost too much off that defense, and all this summertime hype around them. And I'm sorry, Lenora Sellers is hurt, but I think even in their healthy, they would have, and they're going to have a bunch of losses. Again, I had them 5 and 7, in the preseason. That was against every summertime trend out there. I just thought they lost too much from last year.
In regards to Florida, they lose to LSU. They got Miami coming up this weekend. Their schedule is absolutely brutal. Where do you think Florida goes if they make the change? I've heard some talk show hosts in Florida mention John Gruden. I've heard other talk show hosts said, Steve Spurrier's still good friends with Dabo Swinney. Make a call to Dabo, make him tell you no. But through all of that smoke, when it does settle, where do you think Florida will center its attention on?
Pat, I promise I'll get to the answer to that question. I'll get to it quickly. But two things I don't want to hear around the Florida job and these Florida job prospects from our brethren and people in sports talk radio, male and female alike. Don't say anybody can win at Florida, because they haven't. Only two in the last 60 years have been able to win at Florida, and that was Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer. Even Steve Spurrier's coach, Ray Graves, with Steve Spurrier, didn't win, to that level. He had modest to really good success, but it got Doug Dickey, it got Charlie Pell, it got Galen Hall, it got Gary Darnell. Look at the people it got Ron Zook, and now McElwain and Mullen, and now it's getting Billy Napier. If he loses Saturday night, he'll be 20-22, and only winning it all in basketball, I think, saves him and his AD. Scott Strickland has had some abominable football coaching hires at Florida, and why in the world would they trust him again to do it? Call in Spurrier, call in Meyer, call in those Bull Gators, and let them make the hire. Scott Strickland doesn't know what he's doing hiring football coaches.
There you go. There in a nutshell.
Well said, Brett.
Absolutely. All right, we do this each and every week with Brett at lunch. What are we doing? Oh, there we go. We do have music.
We got both. We got lunch and music.
Yeah. All right, Landrum, would you like to set him up?
Hi, Brett. You have been red hot this season. You give us your I Ain't Scared bold prediction of the college football weekend. Sometimes we get one. Sometimes we get five for 5 times the fun. Where are you going this week?
Oh, last week my 5-team money line parlay was right there to be had, but Florida couldn't get there, and I think I had LSU or Ole Miss minus the points, but I did have Florida plus 7.5 last week. I lost. I'm 2-2 on the big pick this week. I'm going to stay right there with the Gators. I'm going to take the Gators plus 7.5 at Miami, where they have not won in 40 years. They have not beaten Miami in Miami since 1985. So, again, don't say anybody can win there. I left out the other one. I said 2 things don't say. Don't say anybody can win there, and please, seriously.
So the
That's it.
Had a good mustache. Had a really nice mustache.
That highlights, really, after Georgia and Herschel won it in 80, we went the rest of the 80s without winning the national championship. It was until Gene Stallings in 92 to win a national championships, and there were great Auburn teams, really good LSU teams in there, really good Georgia teams in there, good Tennessee teams in there. And the SEC, after Herschel won it in 80 with Buck Bellew, we didn't win it again for the decade of the 80s.
Yeah, that was a weak decade.
Yeah, you had Miami, Nebraska, Florida State doing things against lesser competition, Molly. Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Getting their charity at the end of the year from their AP voters.
Where is Molly? I haven't spoken to Molly all year. Where is Molly?
She's right here. She's writing all your picks down. Are you kidding me? I mean, she's ready. Talk to Brett.
Uncle Brett.
Molly, I didn't visit. I ain't been able to visit with you all year.
I know. It's been a while.
She's all stuck up if you didn't know that. Brett.
No, they just keep me locked up here in the station.
Oh, please.
I'm not allowed to leave.
Go ahead. Tell them about your big Nebraska pick this weekend.
Oh, yeah, I like Nebraska and the points.
Against Michigan.
That's a good pick.
Thank you.
And I want y'all take a look at these games from around the country. And I just so reject that college football is not in a strong position. But because of conference realignment, We never get Texas Tech, Utah as a regular season game. We never get Michigan and Nebraska. That would be a New Year's Day great bowl game. We're getting Florida and Miami. That's not because of conference realignment. We don't always get that. Late Saturday night at 10 o'clock on our TVs in the Central Time Zone on Fox that will be kickoff for Michigan State and USC.
Yes.
Big time.
Yes.
Pac-12 after dark.
We're in a golden age of college football.
We're only getting Auburn, Oklahoma for the fourth time ever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And two of those other three were Sugar Bowls that I remember very, very well. I told my radio partner yesterday, Bryant Dacus, that I'm making an in-season New Year's resolution, a college football resolution. I do not talk portal, NIL, off the field, eligibility issues, Pavia, legal wrangling. I will not talk it again in season. Let's talk on the field, and on the field is 100 out of 100. I mean, whatever scoring system we're maxing out with this great sport, let's enjoy it while we have it.
Great stuff. Brett, enjoy the weekend against Tulane, and it should be a lot of fun next week as the LSU Bengal Tigers come up for the big rivalry. And before we let you go, quickly, I know we're short on time, but Tuesday night, the SEC Network, they're going to announce the 3 permanent rivals for every SEC team. What's your prediction for Ole Miss? What's going to be their 3?
I'm going to go LSU and State, and it's really easy. The third one, I think, will be Vanderbilt, and I'm going to go for Arkansas. For Arkansas, I'm going to go Mizzou, Texas, and LSU.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we'll find out Tuesday night, and I'll speak with you a little bit later today, Brett.
You bet.
All right, thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Brett.
That is Brett Norsworthy. He joined us on the Higginbotham Hotline. You deserve solutions that are built for you. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
A lot of responses on the text line. We will get to those as the Thursday edition of Three Man Front continues right here. Your home for college football and more. Jocks. 12:52, three-man front, Brett Norsworthy, the Southern gentleman. His I Ain't Scared bold prediction, Florida plus 7.5 at Miami. Any portion of that or any portion of the show you missed, you can find it there, three-man front podcast at jocksfm.com. It is fall. That means pumpkin spice. Hopefully some cooler temperatures coming. But right now here in the deep south, especially in the state of Alabama, it's still hot outside. Let's be honest. It's hot. And when temperatures are warm outside, what does that mean? Bugs, roaches, spiders, ants, stinging insects. It's no fun. They serve a purpose in nature, right, Molly? But golly, you don't want them in your house. You don't want them on your skin. You don't want your kids running in, screaming, crying because they've been hit by a bunch of wasps. Well, Stark Exterminators, they're here to help. Not only inside your home, but around your home. They're going to protect everything that you want to protect when it comes to your home and keeping the pest out. Also, if you're a business owner, they do that as well. They've been family-owned for over 61 years, professional, courteous. They stand on their reputation, and that's why we use Stark at the Roberts household. That's why I'm recommending that you use them. Call them today, 855-STARK now, or go to starkexterminators.com. When you do so, one of their professional and courteous team members is going to come out to your house, your place of business, inspect it thoroughly inside and out like they did at ours, and they'll come up with a customized solution just for you in anything that could arise down the road. Stark Exterminators also ask them about their termite protection plan and everything else that they have to offer. Stark, 855-STARK now, or go to starkexterminators.com. And when you do so, always tell them Landrum from Jocks sent you. We'll get to a lot of your texts that have piled up over the course of the show. We love your texts. We read them all. Some we can't read on the air, and some are repeats. So here we go.
Has my vet texted in yet?
No, but
That's
this
disappointing.
is very sad. I'll just lead it with this one. Austin says, my dog Tua passed away this morning. Hopefully Tua and the Dolphins pull this one out for him.
Oh,
I'm sorry to hear that, Austin.
So sorry.
Hopefully they can have a good night tonight. That's
Yeah.
awful.
Austin, thinking about you and your family. Been through it. Jody says, I bet y'all love when Mike Griffith comes on. You can rest your voices, do your taxes, book flights, hotels, etc.
He's a talker, but he has a lot of good stuff to say.
Vicky says she remembers what happened to Charlie Pell when he left Clemson for Florida. Didn't work out well.
It's a good point.
Permanent opponents. Some people thinking Alabama. Their third would be Mississippi State, not LSU. Nick Saban, he would pick Mississippi State.
I think Mississippi State would rather have anybody else as a permanent opponent than Alabama.
Someone else saying Auburn should request Florida. Don't be scared. Bug Guy wants to know why Auburn and Vandy. More discussion. We'll continue